Hollow Creek was the kind of town that seemed pulled straight from an old storybook, with its cobblestone streets and the perpetual whisper of wind through the ancient trees. It was a quaint place in the northeastern corner of the United States, not far from the rugged coastline of Maine. The locals had a penchant for telling tales, particularly about the dark woods that bordered the town. They called it the Whispering Woods, and for good reason. As a child, I often heard hushed whispers about the haunted happenings that occurred there, especially around Hollow Creek. Growing up, I was both terrified and fascinated by the stories. My friends and I would dare each other to venture deeper into the woods, but no one ever went far. There was one story, though, that stood out above all others, the tale of the Hollow Boy. They said he was a child like us, but hollowed out by some terrible curse, doomed to wander the woods, searching for something or someone to fill the emptiness inside him. I was 10 years old when I first saw him. It was a chilly autumn evening, the kind where the leaves crunched underfoot and the air smelled like pine and distant smoke. My friend Tommy and I had dared each other to go to the edge of the woods, just to see if we could hear the whispers up close. We were armed with flashlights and bravado, but as we neared the tree line, a cold dread settled over us. "Do you think it's real?" Tommy asked, his voice quivering. I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "It's just a story, right? I mean, there can't really be a hollow boy." But deep down, I wasn't so sure. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves and carrying with it a faint, eerie whisper. We both froze, our flashlights trembling in our hands. That's when we saw him, a pale figure standing just beyond the first line of trees. He was a boy, no older than us, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. Tommy gasped, and I felt my heart hammer in my chest. The boy took a step forward, and we turned and ran as fast as our legs could carry us, the whispers growing louder with each step. When we finally burst into the safety of the streetlights, panting and terrified, we looked back, but the figure was gone. We didn't talk about it much after that night, but the image of those hollow eyes haunted my dreams. I couldn't shake the feeling that the hollow boy was real, that he was out there, waiting. And as the years went by, I would learn just how real the legend of Hollow Creek truly was. Life in Hollow Creek continued as usual after that eerie encounter, but something had changed within me. I became obsessed with the legend of the Hollow Boy, spending hours at the local library poring over old newspapers and town records. There were countless accounts of children who had gone missing over the years, their disappearances shrouded in mystery. Each story had a common thread, sightings of a ghostly boy with hollow eyes. My parents were concerned about my newfound obsession. They tried to reassure me, saying it was just a story meant to keep kids from wandering into the woods. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. Every night, as I lay in bed, I could hear the whispers, growing louder, calling my name. One night, I decided to confide in my older sister, Emily. She was 14, 3 years older than me, and always seemed to know everything. "Emily, do you think the Hollow Boy is real?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Why do you ask, Jack?" I told her about the night in the woods, about the figure Tommy and I had seen. Emily listened intently, her brow furrowing as I recounted the story. When I finished, she sighed and shook her head. "Jack, it's just a legend. There's no such thing as the Hollow Boy. You need to stop scaring yourself." But I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was trying to be the rational older sister, but something in my story had unsettled her. A few nights later, I woke to the sound of whispers outside my window. I sat up, heart pounding, and crept to the window, peering into the darkness. There, just beyond the reach of the streetlight, stood the Hollow Boy, his hollow eyes fixed on me. I felt a chill run down my spine as he raised a hand, beckoning me to come closer. I stumbled back from the window, terrified. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling my room with their eerie chant. I squeezed my eyes shut, covering my ears, but the whispers penetrated my thoughts, planting a seed of fear deep within me. The next morning, I told Emily what had happened. She looked pale, her usual confidence shaken. "Jack, we need to tell Mom and Dad," she said, her voice trembling. But I knew they wouldn't believe us. They would brush it off as childish imagination, just like they always did. We were on our own, facing a legend that had come to life. Emily and I decided to take matters into our own hands. We spent every free moment researching the history of Hollow Creek and the Whispering Woods. The more we dug, the more we uncovered a dark and twisted history that had been buried beneath the town's picturesque facade. We learned that the land Hollow Creek was built on had once been home to a small village in the early 1800s. The village had been ravaged by disease and mysterious disappearances, leading the few remaining inhabitants to abandon it. The area had been left untouched for decades, its dark history forgotten, until the town of Hollow Creek was established. We found old journal entries and letters from the original settlers, describing strange occurrences and eerie sightings in the woods. There were mentions of a cursed child who had been seen wandering the forest, his eyes hollow and his presence bringing despair to those who encountered him. One entry in particular stood out. It was from a woman named Abigail who had lived in the village in the late 1800s. She wrote about her son, Samuel, who had disappeared one night after venturing into the woods. Abigail described how she had seen him again, days later, his eyes hollow and his body frail. She believed he had been taken by some malevolent force, twisted into something inhuman. Emily and I were both horrified and fascinated by these accounts. It was as if the legend of the Hollow Boy was more than just a story. It was a curse that had plagued the area for centuries. We knew we had to do something to stop it, to protect ourselves and the other children of Hollow Creek. We decided to visit the Whispering Woods during the day, hoping to find some clue that would help us understand what we were dealing with. Armed with our flashlights and a sense of determination, we ventured into the woods, our footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. As we walked, the whispers seemed to follow us, growing louder with each step. The trees loomed overhead, their branches forming a twisted canopy that blocked out the sun. We felt the weight of the woods pressing down on us, the air thick with an oppressive sense of dread. "Do you think we'll find anything?" Emily asked, her voice barely audible over the whispers. "I don't know," I replied, my heart pounding. "But we have to try." We pushed deeper into the woods, the whispers guiding us to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an old, decrepit cabin, its wooden walls covered in moss and ivy. The cabin seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as we approached it. "This must be it," Emily said, her voice trembling. "This is where it all began." We stepped inside the cabin, our flashlights illuminating the dark, musty interior. The walls were covered in strange symbols, etched into the wood with a knife. There was a table in the center of the room, covered in old, yellowed papers and a worn leather journal. Emily picked up the journal and began to read aloud. It was Abigail's journal, detailing her descent into madness after Samuel's disappearance. She wrote about hearing whispers, seeing shadows, and feeling a constant, suffocating fear. She believed that Samuel had been taken by a dark force, and that he was now the Hollow Boy, cursed to wander the woods for eternity. We exchanged a fearful glance, realizing that the legend was more real than we had ever imagined. We needed to find a way to break the curse, to free Samuel and end the haunting of Hollow Creek once and for all. Armed with the knowledge from Abigail's journal, Emily and I devised a plan to confront the hollow boy and, hopefully, break the curse. We knew it wouldn't be easy, and the thought of facing the hollow boy filled us with dread. But we couldn't let fear stop us. The lives of countless children depended on us. We decided to return to the Whispering Woods at night, when the hollow boy was most active. As we prepared to leave, Emily gave me a determined look. "Are you ready, Jack?" I nodded, though my heart was pounding in my chest. Ready as I'll ever be. We ventured into the woods, the darkness enveloping us like a thick blanket. The whispers were louder than ever, echoing in our ears and making it difficult to think. We followed the same path we had taken earlier, guided by the faint glow of our flashlights. When we reached the clearing, the hollow boy was waiting for us. His hollow eyes glowed eerily in the darkness, and a sense of despair washed over us. He looked more ghostly than ever, his pale skin almost translucent in the moonlight. "Samuel," Emily called out, her voice strong despite the fear I knew she felt. "We're here to help you." The hollow boy tilted his head, his hollow eyes narrowing as if he was trying to comprehend her words. For a moment, the whispers seemed to quiet, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. "Samuel, we know what happened to you," I said, stepping forward. My voice trembled, but I forced myself to keep speaking. "We know about the curse. We want to help you break it." The hollow boy's expression softened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of humanity in his hollow eyes. He took a step closer, and I could feel the temperature drop, the air growing colder around us. "What do you want us to do?" Emily asked, her voice steady. The hollow boy raised a frail hand and pointed toward the old cabin. We followed his gaze, realizing that whatever we needed to do, it would be inside that decrepit structure. With a nod to each other, we made our way back to the cabin, the hollow boy trailing silently behind us. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of decay, and the whispers seemed to echo louder within the confined space. We stood in the center of the room, the eerie symbols on the walls glowing faintly in the dark. "Samuel," Emily said, "we need to know how to break the curse. Can you show us?" The hollow boy's hand moved to the table, where the old papers and journal lay. He pointed to a page in the journal that we hadn't noticed before. The writing was different, more frantic and desperate. It was a letter from Abigail, written to anyone who might find it. She detailed the curse and how it could be broken, a ritual that required confronting the source of the darkness and severing its hold over Samuel. I glanced at Emily, who gave me a resolute nod. We didn't have much time. The hollow boy was growing fainter, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. We needed to act fast. "All right, let's do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We gathered the necessary items from around the cabin. A piece of Samuel's old clothing, a lock of his hair from Abigail's journal, and a small vial of earth from the clearing. Emily and I followed the instructions in the journal, our hands shaking as we prepared the ritual. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice quivering. "We have to try," Emily replied, her determination unwavering. For Samuel. We stood in the center of the cabin, arranging the items in a circle as instructed. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening, as if the woods themselves were trying to stop us. The hollow boy watched silently, his hollow eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Samuel," Emily said, her voice strong and clear, "we break this curse in the name of those who suffered before you and those who will come after. We set you free." As she spoke, we followed the steps in the journal, reciting the words written in Abigail's frantic hand. The air around us grew colder, the whispers turning into a cacophony of voices. The ground trembled beneath our feet, and the cabin seemed to pulse with dark energy. The hollow boy's form began to shift, his ghostly figure solidifying as the ritual progressed. His hollow eyes filled with tears, and for the first time he looked like the child he once was. "We release you," I said, my voice trembling. "You are free." With a final surge of energy, the whispers stopped abruptly. The oppressive weight lifted, and the cabin fell silent. Samuel's form shimmered one last time before disappearing entirely, a look of peace on his face. Emily and I stood in stunned silence, the gravity of what we had done sinking in. The hollow boy was gone, and with him, the curse that had plagued Hollow Creek for generations. The days following the ritual were surreal. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over Hollow Creek seemed to dissipate, replaced by a sense of calm and normalcy. The whispering woods no longer felt foreboding, and the whispers that had haunted our nights were gone. Emily and I kept what had happened a secret. We knew that no one would believe us, and we didn't want to risk bringing the curse back by speaking of it. Instead, we focused on moving forward, grateful that we had been able to help Samuel find peace. But even as life returned to normal, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching us. I would catch glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye, hear faint whispers when I was alone. It was as if the darkness that had once held Samuel still lingered, waiting for an opportunity to return. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard a familiar sound. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable, the sound of whispers. I sat up, my heart pounding, and looked around my room. The shadows seemed to shift, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "Jack!" a voice whispered, soft and eerie. "Thank you." I froze, recognizing the voice. It was Samuel. But this time it wasn't filled with fear or despair. It was a voice of gratitude, of peace. I smiled, knowing that we had truly set him free. The whispers faded, leaving me with a sense of closure. Hollow Creek had its share of darkness, but it also had moments of light, of hope. And as long as we remembered that, we could face whatever haunted us. The following summer, Hollow Creek celebrated its annual festival, a tradition that had been part of the town for generations. It was a time for the community to come together, to celebrate and remember the past. This year, the festival felt different, brighter, more joyous. The weight of the curse had lifted, and the town seemed to come alive in a way it hadn't in years. Emily and I walked through the festival, enjoying the sights and sounds. The air was filled with laughter and music, the scent of popcorn and cotton candy wafting through the streets. It was a stark contrast to the fear and tension that had gripped the town for so long. As we wandered through the festival, we ran into Tommy, my old friend. He greeted us with a wide smile, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Hey Jack, Emily, it's great to see you," he exclaimed. "Hey Tommy," I replied, grinning. "Enjoying the festival?" "Absolutely. It's like the whole town has come back to life," he said. "I've been hearing a lot of weird stories lately, though. People say the Whispering Woods are quiet now. No more whispers, no more sightings of the Hollow Boy." Emily and I exchanged a knowing look. "Yeah, I guess things are finally settling down," she said. Tommy nodded, oblivious to the truth. "I'm just glad we don't have to worry about those creepy woods anymore." We spent the rest of the day enjoying the festival, relishing the sense of normalcy that had returned to Hollow Creek. As the sun set and the sky turned a brilliant shade of orange, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. The whispers, the Hollow Boy, the curse. We had faced it all and come out stronger. And though the shadows still lingered in the corners of my mind, I knew that we had made a difference. Years passed and Emily and I grew older. We both left Hollow Creek for college, but the town always held a special place in our hearts. We visited often, reconnecting with old friends and reminiscing about our childhood adventures. One summer, during a visit home, Emily and I decided to take a walk through the Whispering Woods. It had been years since we had last ventured into the forest, and we were curious to see if anything had changed. The woods were eerily quiet, the once familiar whispers now replaced by the sounds of nature. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and the wind whispered through the trees. It was peaceful, almost serene. As we walked, we came across the old cabin. It was even more decrepit than before, the walls crumbling and the roof sagging. We stepped inside, memories of our encounter with the hollow boy flooding back. "Do you think he's really gone?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily nodded. "I think so. We set him free, Jack. He's at peace now." We stood in silence for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. The cabin, once a place of fear and darkness, now felt like a monument to our bravery and determination. "Let's go," Emily said, her voice soft. "We have our whole lives ahead of us." We left the cabin, the sun setting behind us, casting long shadows through the trees. As we walked back to town, I felt a sense of closure. The hollow boy was gone, and Hollow Creek was finally free from its curse. But as we reached the edge of the woods, I heard a faint whisper, barely audible over the rustling leaves. I stopped, my heart skipping a beat. "Jack," the whisper said, soft and familiar. I turned, but there was nothing there, just the trees and the fading light of day. I shook my head, smiling to myself. It was probably just my imagination. As we walked back into town, I couldn't help but wonder if the whispers would ever truly leave us. Perhaps they were a part of Hollow Creek, a reminder of the darkness we had faced and the strength we had found within ourselves. And though the whispers might fade, the memories would remain. Hollow Creek would always be a part of us, a place where the past and present intertwined, and where the echoes of our childhood adventures would forever linger. Years later, Emily and I found ourselves back in Hollow Creek, this time with our own families. The town had changed, but the memories of our adventures and the whispers of the past still lingered. We took our children to the festival, sharing stories of our childhood and the legends of Hollow Creek. They listened with wide eyes, fascinated by the tales of the Whispering Woods and the Hollow Boy. One evening, as the sun set and the festival lights twinkled, Emily and I walked through the woods with our children. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and nature, a stark contrast to the fear we had once felt. As we reached the clearing, I saw a familiar figure standing by the old cabin. My heart skipped a beat, but as I looked closer, I realized it was just a shadow, a trick of the light. "What's wrong, Dad?" my daughter asked, tugging at my hand. "Nothing, sweetie," I replied, smiling. "Just remembering some old adventures." We stood in the clearing, the memories of the past washing over us. The cabin, once a place of fear, now felt like a symbol of our resilience and courage. As we walked back to town, I felt a sense of peace. The Hollow Boy was gone, but the legacy of Hollow Creek remained. We had faced the darkness and come out stronger, and our children would carry on the story, the whispers of the past becoming part of their own adventures. And as the sun set on Hollow Creek, I knew that no matter where life took us, the memories of our childhood would always be with us, the echoes of the past forever a part of our lives. Thank you for watching our new story. We hope you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts in the comments. For more stories inspired by real events or chilling fictional tales, click on the video appearing on your screen now or explore our other horror stories playlist. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling narratives. And remember, are you sure the whispers have stopped? Or are they just waiting for you in the dark?